guys, thank you for joining Faithful Friday today. We'll be going over the book of Numbers. I do apologize, I haven't been on for the last couple of Fridays. I've been ill with the virus that's going around, as well as with flu-like symptoms. I'm not sure if that was from the chicken or what, but I've been pretty sick, so I haven't been on. So I do apologize, but I know you guys been reading your word. So you have the book of Numbers. What's the next book? Deuteronomy and Joshua. So I have been reading still. I'm a little further ahead. However, I'm going to go ahead and start with the book of Numbers. I'm going to go through the entire book. So the next few books, I'm going to go through the entire books. I've got a niche of how I do my notes, so my notes are a little different. Hopefully in the near future I can start adding my notes to the video so you can take a look at them and have the notes and copy and paste them so you can have them for your own information going forward. But just for a small recap of the book of Numbers, it's the fourth book of the Bible. It details Israel's journey from Mount Sinai to the borders of the Promised Land. It records the census of the Israelite tribes. That's how it starts off. Their organization for travel and battle, and various laws given by God. The Israelites repeatedly rebel against God and Moses, which I counted 9. And it leads to divine punishment, including 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, key events including and sending of 12 spies into Canaan, the rebellion of Korah, Balaam's blessing instead of curses on Israel, and Moses striking the rock, which bars him from entering Canaan, as well as Aaron. Despite their failures, God remains faithful, preparing the next generation to inherit the land. The book concludes with the laws concerning inheritance and settlement in the Promised Land. So all of these things that I just talked about, I'm going to break it down. Now, how I'm going to go through these, I stated that they rebelled against God and Moses several times. So in my reading, I counted 9 times that they rebelled to where they were punished. So I will first go through what they did, what they were rebelling, what they were saying. Secondly, I'm going to say God's mercy, or where Moses stepped in as interceding on their behalf, and God showed mercy and grace upon them each time, every time. It was just, in this book, it was just ridiculous how many times they rebelled. It was one day the people were swallowed up. The next day, they were right back at it again. So let's go ahead and get into it. As I stated, it's 9 rebellions against God. The complaining of the people started in Numbers book 11, verses 1 through 3. The people murmured against the Lord about their hardships, which led to God sending fire that consumed parts of the camp. Now, God is tired of them complaining. So it seems, the last couple of books that we've read, they've complained quite a bit. So at this point, he's fed up. So when they're doing the complaining now, he's just quickly sending judgment upon them. So they got starting book 11, 1 through 3. This is right after the census and things like that. And he's, giving instructions to Moses, and they want to get started with this kind of stuff. So when they started, he quickly gave judgment, which he set fire and started consuming parts of the camp. Now, The mercy he showed to them is Moses interceded on their behalf, and the fire was quenched, sparing many lives. However, many died in the fire initially. So this is the first rebellion. So the second rebellion, the mixed multitude upon them lusted after flesh instead of manna. Complaining against Moses, God provided quail, but also sent a great plague as punishment. So they got tired of the food that God rained from heaven, which was manna. They were tired of it. Now, I liken the book of Numbers to my own life and to the children of Israel, because I find myself complaining a lot or wavering in my faith when God has shown many of times his blessings upon my life and the things that he's able to do. And even in that, I still waver in my faith in different things that I have before God. I'm not sure, and going back and forth. And this is what the children of Israel did. Now, I pretty much saw myself being punished here, because I don't like to eat leftovers and things like that. So when I saw this, it's like, yeah, they've been eating that manna for quite some time, and I possibly would have been one to do the complaining at this point. Now, I may not have went about it the way that they did, because God have given them everything else. Pretty much they could have asked in a better way, could they get something else? But it was just a mere fact of that nothing is good enough. I've rained food from heaven, free food that you don't have to pay for or anything. It just rained down, you just go out there and get it. And you're complaining. So God gave them what they wanted. He gave them quail. However, he sent a plague right behind it. Okay. So as they grew tired of the manna, they craved for meat. Because the Bible described manna as like a kind of like a sweet cornbread or something like that. So it was kind of like a cornbread type texture. So it wasn't meat that they were eating. So all this time, they had not had any meat. He showed mercy by providing them with quail to meet their requests. However, he was still upset with them, and he pretty much sent a plague. Several plagues. So once he sent the plagues, he then showed mercy upon them and gave them the quail. So, moving right along into the third rebellion is the rebellion with Miriam and Aaron. Now, Miriam and Aaron, they walked close with Moses. And they began to get jealous, because at this point, we're in Numbers chapter 12, 1 through 15. In this part, Moses have heard from God at this point, and he's getting the different people that's going to be able to help and participate and help with the children of Israel. So he's getting people he's putting people into positions and things like that during this time. And they got to questioning his authority. And they're saying, like, God speak to us. Why is it like Moses feel like God only speak to him? God speak to us too. And they're kind of like gossiping and talking about Moses behind his back. Now God, hearing them, quickly checked them. And he stated to them, you know, this is who I have that's going to lead my people, and this is who I speak to. And the punishment that he gave, now it was Aaron and Miriam. But how many people know that all you have to do is make an example out of one, and everybody else will keep their mouths quiet after that? So he struck Miriam with leprosy. And the point that I wanted to make with this piece right here is very important. One of the main things I wanted to bring out in the book of Numbers was this section here, because we see this happening, and this is what people call church hurt type of thing. Because a lot of people will see someone being elevated and used in church, and they will start gossiping and talking about the person, and pretty much saying like, who do they think that he is, and they being used, and why would they get put up, and this and that. And just to give a quick testimony, at my old church, my pastor would always call me up to sing. And I was in the choir, I was on youth night, praise and worship, and on the youth night praise and worship team. And she would still call me to sing at different times. Now, it was a reason for her doing that. I don't call myself being a singer or nothing of the sort. Now, it was another young lady in the church, and she had a good singing voice. And she did what Miriam and Aaron did. She got to complaining and gossiping and talking and saying, why do pastor always call me up to sing? That she can sing better than me. So why do pastor call me? And saying, you know, is it favoritism, and a lot of other things. And that really wasn't the case. My pastor stated that my deliverance would come through me singing and praising and worshiping God through song. And this is why she would always call on me to come up and sing. So it was for a whole nother reason of what she was thinking. And it's the same thing here. They're gossiping and talking, and this is not even the case. Yes, they may hear from God, but God chose Moses to lead the children of Israel. It's a task that he gave to Moses. And because of their disobedience, and because of their gossiping and complaining behind the man of God's back, God struck Miriam with leprosy. And what's so ironic about this is that Aaron then went to Moses for Moses to intercede on her behalf. One thing I saw in this book that was consistent, somebody, which for the most part was Moses, was always going to intercede on behalf of somebody. On behalf of the children of Israel, on the behalf of Miriam. You know, he was always coming to the rescue. And in this case, they were gossiping about him. So the punishment was what they were saying about him. And then they had to go to this same person that they were talking about and have them to intercede on their behalf for God to take the leprosy away from Miriam. So God did heal her, but he shut her out the camp for 7 days, because he said basically if she would have did that unto her father, you know, humiliated her father, she would have had to be banished for 7 days. So she had to sit outside the camp for 7 days. So they waited on her, and when she came back, then they continued to travel. So that was the third rebellion. The fourth is the 10 spies. So after spying out the land of Canaan, 10 of the 12 spies brought back an evil report, causing the people to fear and refuse to enter the land. Their rebellion led God to condemning that generation to die in the wilderness. Because, I mean, it's like if I parted the Red Sea, I've rained food from heaven, I've turned bitter water into sweet. I mean, I've came through time and time and time and time again. I help you defeat your enemies. I brought you out of slavery from the beginning and then got rid of them. So you know they'll never come back to try to get you to put you back in slavery. You saw them die right before your eyes. And I've been telling you that this land is yours. I promise you this land, and you're going to tell me, no, these men is too big and the land is nice and everything, but we ain't going to be able to take this land. We ain't going to be able to do it. So you putting God in a box and you saying that he's not able. He did all of these things, but this God, you're not able to do. And I compared my own life as well as many others to this. God can do so many different things in our lives, and we get one bill. And they say we owe a bill, and we just fall out in the floor. Like God is not able to pay that bill for us. If it's not that, it could be something else. And when we just pop our top, when all we have to do is stand firm and know that God is able to do it. So God got so upset with him, he just like, look, you can condemn to die right here. You won't even get to the promised land then. Fine, die right here. Through the Israelites refusing to enter Canaan and wanting to return to Egypt. And this is the thing. They don't just doubt God, but they get to saying, well, it was better where we was at. And I mean, it's the same thing. God will get you out of a relationship with somebody that you know you shouldn't have been with, that you just settled. And just to say that you got somebody or whatever, know that the person not treating you right. You go to sleep crying every night and everything, and God gets you out of that situation. And then after a while, you start like, oh, shoot. Dang, I'm kind of lonely. I want to have somebody around like, well, dang, did I make the right choice or decision? Because I'm sitting up here by myself. I'm lonely. Like, well, God, I know you got him on my life, but dang, I mean, shoot, somebody was better than nobody. When if God took them away, God will bring better. Always. Always. That's how it goes. That's the blueprint. If God removes something, he gonna always give you better. Quick testimony. Going through my divorce, and I was fighting to keep a house that I know that God gave me. I know it. I will pull up in front of the house and I will pray. God gave it to me. Even the realtor said, this house was meant for you to get, because after they accepted your offer, we got about 20 calls in this office. I knew that it was God. So I'm like, why are you allowing for it to be taken? Like you gotta fight, God. You gotta fight with me to keep my stuff. And I remember in my apartment, I had a ottoman, and I'm looking at it right now, a teal ottoman that I had that sat in the middle of my floor, and God told me to go around it 7 times. Like he told them to do with the wall of Jericho. And he said after the 7 times, release it. Because he's saying, I can't give you better. I can't give you anything if you're holding on to something else. If I'm holding it right here in front of your face to try to hand it to you, if you grasping onto something else, you can't even take it. And God is saying, if I was God enough to give you that one and you know that I gave you that one, why you can't believe me that I won't give you another? That's even better. And it didn't happen right away, right when I wanted it, because I wanted something right then. And when I really think about it and telling the truth, I wanted it right then because I wanted to show, like, I can get another one. You know, I can bounce right back and I can get this and I can get that. But God wanted me to see. You know, my mama always taught us, don't rent, own. So I'm thinking, like, I don't want to rent. I'm never going to rent and all of that. Don't never say what you're never going to do, because sometimes God will have you to go through certain things, because it's going to be certain people in your journey and path that you're going to meet, that you're going to have to give that testimony to, or you will be able to know what it is that they're going through because you've been there. I can't show sympathy for somebody that's a renter. I now have rental property. And because I rented and I was late on my rent, and I had to ask my landlord to have mercy on me, I know what it is. So now I can show mercy on somebody else because I know what it is. I know that sometimes you can work a job and all of this and you fall on hard times and you don't have it. So I know what it is to kind of go through those things. So now, because I went through that, I know. And I'm able to show compassion to someone else that has went through something similar. So sometimes you will go through things in life and it's not really for you, it's about someone else. But getting back to the topic at hand and the testimony that I was giving, God ended up giving me in the home that I'm in right now. This was what God was telling me that he had better for me. That all I had to do was let it go. Let go what I was holding. Just believe and have faith that he was able to do it. That he was able to take care of that situation. If he was telling me to let it go, then he was going to provide and make sure that I had a roof over my head, and that he was going to provide me with better. And he did just that. And here he was talking to the children of Israel, and that's what he was pretty much telling them and wanting them to understand. He was telling them, I'm giving you this land. This is the promised land I've been talking about the whole time. Why would I bring you this far for you to fail? Why? But yet they doubted him. So, in anger, God just, he was through at that point. Like you could just die where you at. You could stay right here and die. And that's where he pretty much was like, you know, I can't. But the plea, listening to Moses' plea, he did not destroy them immediately. Instead, he allowed the next generation to enter the promised land. So, just to give a full recap of what I'm saying, the children of Israel that were slaves, that he parted the Red Sea for, that he rained manna from heaven, gave them drinking water, all of these things. These people is not entering into the promised land. God had the promise right there for them, for the taking, and they rejected it. Pretty much that's what they did. When they came back and gave the evil report and basically was saying what they can't do and they can't enter the land and they can't conquer the land, they were pretty much telling God, like, we don't want what you have for us. Because if God said it's yours, if God said it, he's more than the whole world against you. So you shouldn't have feared those people. He was going, it was already won. The battle was won. But instead of them having faith in God, which he had showed them many, many times what he was capable of doing, they basically stated no. So God was so just, he didn't just say, forget it. But God said the next generation, your children and their children will be able to enter into the promised land. He still was willing to keep the covenant that he gave. To his fellow followers from years and years and years back. But just that quick, they talked themselves out of being able to get in the promised land. All because of the doubting of their faith. And these next couple of books, I just find myself, I'm going to speak on myself. I'm not going to keep talking about nobody else. I'm going to speak on me. I find myself in the children of Israel, time and time again, of where I have to stop reading and just pretty much repent. Because I do the same. It may not be manna from heaven, but I'll complain about I don't have money for this or that, but I'm constantly door dashing because I don't want the refrigerator full of food that God has provided. Or I don't want to eat leftovers. So I'm going to go and buy fast food or whatever. God was just bringing all of this stuff up. So, moving right along, Korah's rebellion. Okay. So, 5 and 6 is pretty much together. So, Korah's rebellion is Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, and 250 leaders challenged Moses and Aaron's leadership. So, this is the part of where I look at misery loves company, or people, they like to basically taint other people. They can be mad and feel some type of way, and then they go and gossip and they tell somebody else, and they get them upset, and that person get behind them and they tell somebody else, and so they can get them a group behind them. This is what happened. And they ended up with these 3 people, they ended up having 250 other leaders behind them. And in this, they challenged Moses and Aaron's leadership. Now, how many of us know that when people are in place and they're doing something, here goes somebody else feeling that they can do it better, or I hear better from God, or you doing it wrong. I don't think God told you that. All kind of stuff, and you're interrupting what God is trying to do. So God at this point don't have time for this. He's preparing these people to take the children of Israel to take the promised land. So he really don't have time for this, but they're constantly conjuring up different things of where they're rebelling against God and against Moses and whoever is in leadership. So the first rebellion is where they come and they rebel against Moses and Aaron. So what happened is God caused the ground to open up and swallow them. And a fire consumed the 250 men. So God made a prime example out of them, So the sixth rebellious act is the complaining over Korah's punishment. Now, this is where I said this was like back to back. Korah come with the two other people that had went and poisoned 250 and had them all to come, and they gonna confront Moses and Aaron. So God swallowed them up. So now the next day, some more people, some more Israelites, here they come. And they're basically like the punishment. The people accuse Moses and Aaron of killing God's people. Like, you all killed all of those people. So now here they go trying to get some type of rebellion going against Moses and Aaron. So God stepped in one more time, and it led to plagues that killed 14,700 Israelites before Aaron made an atonement. So I'm going to skip this one little piece right here and go into, because I want to explain what an atonement was, what Aaron did to stop the hand of God from killing more Israelites. Aaron made an atonement for the people in Numbers. This happened in chapter 16, verses 46 to 50, after they rebelled following the Korah's rebellion. Here is how he did it. Now, after the plague began killing the Israelites due to their rebellion, Moses quickly told Aaron, and this is quoted directly from the King James Version, "Take a censer and put fire therein from off the altar, and put on incense, and go quickly unto the congregation, and make an atonement for them. For there is wrath gone out from the Lord. The plague is begun." Now Aaron obeyed and ran into the midst of the people, taking the burning censer and with incense. As he stood between the living and the dead, the plague stopped. And he stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stayed. Now, this part of this is telling me, and as I stated earlier, it was a lot of intercession happening. For the most part, it was Moses interceding, and that's standing in the gap. And here, this pretty much tells you this is what Aaron did. Now, he had to get the censer and incense and things, but he stood between, which he stood in the gap and made up the hedge. He stood between the dead and the living, and it stopped. So here we're seeing Aaron is kind of physically showing how he interceded on behalf of the people. And God stopped his wrath upon the people. So even though 14,700 people died before Aaron's atonement, his intercession stopped further death. Afterward, Aaron returned to Moses at the tabernacle. Now, This is how Aaron's atonement worked. The censer with incense symbolized intercessory prayer. Fire from the altar represented God's holiness and the need for a divine mediator. Aaron's position between the dead and the living showed the atonement brings protection and mercy. And this act foreshadowed Christ, our ultimate high priest who intercedes to stop spiritual death. Aaron's obedience and quick action saved Israel from complete destruction, demonstrating both God's judgment and mercy. So I just wanted to quickly give that information on what Aaron's atonement was for those people that stopped the hand of God. And pretty much it was an act of intercession. So, please excuse me, I'm still stuffy. So, just going back, and I'm just going to give what God did to show mercy upon the people. When Korah and his followers rebelled, God was ready to destroy the whole congregation. However, Moses and Aaron interceded, and only the rebels were punished. When a plague broke out, Aaron made atonement, stopping it from killing more people. So in both instances, in the rebellion of the fifth rebellion is where Korah challenged Moses and Aaron. God was just going to kill everybody. Not just the 3 and the 250, because he was tired of them with the mess. However, Moses and Aaron interceded on their behalf, and God just took the 250 and Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Abiram. So that was the first mercy he showed upon them. The second, he sent out the plague when they came talking about the punishment that he gave to them when he swallowed them up in the ground. Now the punishment they got was the plague broke out. However, God showed mercy by the atonement that Aaron gave, and he stopped the plague. But even then, it was 14,000, what did I say? 14,700 people that died due to their disobedience. And due to them, their rebellious spirit. So now we're moving right along into 7. The people quarreled over water, and instead of speaking to the rock as God commanded, Moses struck it in anger. So, this act of rebellion caused him to be denied entry into Canaan. Now, my notes don't have this in here, but Aaron was also going along with Moses. And sometimes you can inherit the punishment of somebody else because you're sitting there going along with them. When Aaron should have told him, like, no, do what God told you to do. If God says speak to it, speak to it. But you got right there and you yelled, hit it, type thing, instead of telling him to speak to it. So they both were pretty much denied entry into the promised land. And it's funny because this will show you how you can lead so many different people to Christ, and you can do all these things, and your disobedience And one thing can stop the promise of God, the hand of God on your life, can keep you from entering in to heaven. Now, it's not that he was denied entering into heaven, but I'm talking about us today. And it don't even have to be heaven. It could be something that God promised us. And pretty much due to our rebellious spirit and disobedience to what God is saying and wavering in our faith and not believing in God. That's pretty much what he did. And the other thing, because I'm like, wow, God, I mean, don't you think that was a harsh punishment? All that Moses had did and how he had listened to everything else. God brought to my attention, when you are in front of his people, that should not be taken lightly, and you should not play with it. You do as what God tells you. Don't be in your flesh. Don't give up your opinion. But God, let me decrease that you may increase. That you speak to your people through me. Not me, but you. Moses did not do what God said, so he was being disobedient. God said, speak to the rock. He didn't feel that water was going to come out of it if he spoke to it. He needed to hear it for it to come out. And due to Aaron getting the same punishment, he must have thought they were the same thing as well. Please excuse me. It's these dogs. I'm so tired of them. Okay. Where was I? I was saying Aaron had to feel the same way because he got the same punishment. And it just showed me that you cannot be over God's people and don't be obedient to what God is telling you to do. You can't take that lightly and get into your own fields and get to doing whatever you feel like doing. You have to do what God is telling you to do and calling you to do. And you have to walk in the way of Christ, not leading your brethren astray. Because it will be consequences to it. And I just was like, wow. You know, initially I was looking at it like, you know, that was a real harsh punishment. And to God had to really show me. He did not only doubt me like in private and between me and him or anything. Like Moses, you know, had been before God. His countenance changed numerous of times because he went before God. And you died? It shouldn't have been nothing that God didn't tell him to do, that he did not do it exactly the way that God told him to do it. All the things that God had did before in front of him. Really all of them, but even more so him. But he did it in front of the children of Israel, God's people. So they're following you. You're the leader. So if you're doubting and you're doing all of this stuff, that's what you're going to lead these people to do. And God he can't have that. You can't be up leading his people wrong. So that was the punishment that he gave them. However, the task that he gave to Moses was not finished. So He just told him that he wouldn't end up seeing the promised land. And neither would Aaron. So, even though the people quarreled and lacked faith, God still provided water from the rock, ensuring that they had what they needed to survive. So, although Moses hit the rock and didn't speak to it, God still allowed the water to come from the rock, and the children of Israel still had water. That was the mercy that he gave upon them. However, he still dished out the punishment. Here is what God said. In Numbers chapter 20, verses 12. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, because ye believed me not, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel. Therefore ye shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given you. Just what I just said. They did this. Hey! Get out of here. They did this in the eyes of the children of Israel. And they didn't believe that God was able to do it with what he told them to do. They didn't feel that the water was going to come from the rock if they spoke to it. So they came up with the clever idea, we going to hit it. So because of this act of unbelief and disobedience, both Moses and Aaron was forbidden from entering the promised land. Now Aaron's death was part of the fulfillment of this judgment. So Aaron's death on Mount Hor, which was later in Numbers chapter 20, verses 23 through 26, God directly commanded Moses to take Aaron and his son Eleazar up Mount Hor, where Aaron would die. His priestly garments were transferred to Eleazar before he passed, signifying the transition of the priesthood. Directly from the King James Version. Aaron shall be gathered unto his people, for he shall not enter into the land which I have given unto the children of Israel, because ye rebelled against my word at the water of Meribah. Numbers 20:24, King James Version. So, Moses didn't die in the book of Numbers, just to give a little spoiler alert. His time is coming in Deuteronomy 34. In the book of Numbers, Moses is still leading the Israelites through the wilderness, while he is told by God that he will not enter the promised land because he struck the rock instead of speaking to it. That's in Numbers 27 through 12. His actual death does not occur in this book. So at this point, God, had Aaron to pass away early. His job was done. However, Moses still had a task at hand that God needed him to do before he took him home. These dogs, oh my God. So, the eighth rebellion is the fiery serpents. The Israelites spoke against God and Moses due to impatience. So God then sent fiery serpents among them. Many died, but those who looked at the bronze serpent Moses made were healed. So pretty much when God sent the fiery serpents as punishment for the Israelites complaining, He also provided a way of healing. Anyone who looked at the bronze serpent Moses made was saved from that. Here they go, still complaining. Out of all these different things, they're still complaining. They're complaining due to being impatient. Now they're impatient now when they got something. So God sent fiery serpents and it's biting them and killing them and all of this. I mean, he was killing them by thousands. You saw just with the one plague, it was 14,700. It was large numbers like that each time. And it's 9 instances of where they've done this. So he's about pretty much killed off the generation of Israelites that he brought out of slavery. He's pretty much killed them all. All that didn't die of natural causes and of old age or whatever. They were being killed off due to their disobedience. So here again, this was pretty much another punishment that killed thousands. All because of them being impatient. So here in Numbers 22, because the bronze serpent and all of this stuff happens in chapter 21, 5 through 9. So in chapters 22 through 24, I just want to highlight this before I go into the last rebellious act of the Israelites. This is the protecting Israel from Balaam's curse. Now, all while they were doing these things in rebellion, God was still letting them go in and conquer land and all of this stuff as they were on their way to Canaan to take the promised land. So, word got around pretty much like, they, when they come and they want some land, they're getting it. They got God behind them. So King Balak was like, I got something for him. I know a man that I'm going to call and have cursed them so they can't take my land. Because he didn't want to do a fair fight and battle with them because he knew that they had God on their side and they were going to win. So what he did was he was going to hire Balaam, however you pronounce it, to curse Israel. But God turned the curse into a blessing, ensuring Israel continued protection. Now, just to give some history, Balaam was a non-Israelite prophet mentioned in the Bible, particularly in Numbers chapters 22 through 24. He was known for his ability to bless and curse, and he was sought after by Balak, the king of Moab. And he sought after Balaam to curse Israel. However, his relationship with God was complex. Balaam, he had a gift, but I think Balaam loved money. So if the money was right, then he wouldn't do what would God do type stuff. Balaam was going to do what that money was telling him to do, pretty much. So Balaam was not an Israelite. Yet he had some knowledge of the true God. This is in chapters 22, verses 8 through 9. He was considered a diviner or a soothsayer. In today's times, you could pretty much say he was like what they call them people, a palm reader or whatever, or whatever, when they be doing them spells and all of that stuff. To me, witchcraft, pretty much witchcraft, to sum it up. So that can be found in Joshua 13 and 22 about Balaam, who had some level of communication with God through his heart, though his heart was not fully devoted to him. Like I said, the money was right. He would not do the will of God or what God wanted him to do in a lot of instances. It's kind of like he wasn't fully sold out for Christ. He wasn't fully sold out for God. That money was right. He would get done what you wanted done. However, he didn't know all gifts is given by God. Like some people, you know, and they do stuff for money and tarot readers and all of that. People that can read and tell that different stuff, is still, God is still, God is the one that give all gifts. It's, are you using your gift for God, or are you using your gift to please the enemy's agenda? Because if God is not in it, then the enemy is able to peek his way in at any time and change things around. And it could be one word or two words. Hey, Mookie, they got your Marshall. I'm sorry, you guys. So, if God is not in it, it leaves room for the enemy to creep in. And this is how Balaam was. If the money was good and somebody was offering him gold and all of this stuff, sure, I'll curse somebody. You know, I'll curse them. When really you should not be using your gift to harm anyone. That's not something that God would do or Jesus would do. At this time, Jesus wasn't on the scene, so I won't say that. But I'm saying in today's time, when we have a lot of different talents and gifts, we need to use them properly and ask God how he wants to use those things, because he's the one that gave them to us. So we seek and ask God, how do he want those gifts and things to be used? We don't use them for our own, I'm thinking to say guilty pleasures or whatever it may be, to get a couple of dollars or whatever. But I'm just kind of giving you a background history of this man Balaam, because King Balak is calling upon him to put this curse on the children of Israel. So while Balaam had the ability to pronounce blessings and curse, it was ultimately God who controlled their effectiveness. Like I said, all gifts is given by God. So at the end of the day, really God can control what you bless and what you curse. Truly. So Balaam could only bless or curse as permitted by God. So God told Balaam, thou shalt not go with them. Thou shalt not curse the people, for they are blessed. This shows that his word had no real power unless God allowed it. So even though God had control and all he had to do was just keep Balaam from being able to curse them, he gave Balaam a choice. God told him, when they come to get you, don't go with them. These people that they want you to curse are blessed people. They're my people. So, like, they my people. So leave them alone. When they come to get you, don't even get yourself into this. This ain't even your battle to fight or nothing. So don't even go. So the first time around, Balaam did just that. Shockingly, he didn't take the bait. He didn't take the money. He listened to what God said. Okay. Balak says, for I wot that he whom thou blessest is blessed, and he whom thou cursest is cursed. This suggests Balaam had a reputation for effective blessings and curses, likely through occult practices before encountering the true God. So like I said, his love of money was allowing him to use this gift to do harm to people. And a lot of times it could be people that was of God, and he was doing harm to them if the money was right, if what he was getting was good out of the deal. And it was like he was known for this. So that's why when Balak got stuck between a rock and a hard place and needed to, do something to keep his land, he called upon him. So through Balaam was initially willing to curse Israel for money, God intervened, making him bless Israel instead. This demonstrates that any power Balaam had was under God's control. So they came back again, and God told him to go ahead and go with him. Now this time when he went, Balaam started making in his mind like, dang, they giving me a little bit more, than what they was offering initially. So maybe, and see, God knows our thoughts. So when he got to doing this, God is like, okay, because I'm not about to play with you, In the book of Numbers, God wasn't playing. He was coming soon as you got started with whatever that you was doing or whatever, he was coming with judgment. Coming right on with it. Now he'll show mercy afterwards, but he was dishing it out, okay? The punishments was coming. So he quickly dispatched the angel. Like, you can kill him. He not gonna go and say and bless these people instead of cursing them. He contemplating in his mind if he want to take the money or he thinking about cursing them. So the angel came and stopped him in the road. The donkey was seeing the angel. He couldn't see the angel. The donkey that he was riding saw it. So he was beating on the donkey and all kind of stuff because the donkey wouldn't go. And pretty much, I'm just paraphrasing it so I can sum it up. The donkey spoke to him like, what? Why are you beating me? Like, because the donkey couldn't even understand, like, why are you beating me? This angel is here. So really, the donkey helped him realize and help spare his life. And when he saw the angel and everything, that's when he pretty much knew, like, to stop playing with God. And you will have to read that. It's in the book of Numbers 31 through 16. Basically, you could read that whole chapter. So even though God used Balaam to bless Israel, he later caused Israel to sin by advising Balak to lead them into idolatry and immorality. Because of this, he was ultimately killed by the Israelites. So he didn't die then because he went on ahead and did what God asked of him to do. He got on that donkey and he went there. And he told them that he had to do what God told him to do. And he blessed them instead of cursing them. Now, he fell out with Balak at that time because he didn't do what Balak told him to do. But later, and that's what I'm saying, he wasn't fully sold out for God. And that's the thing, when you're not a devout Christian or you're not fully sold out on God, you leave room for the enemy to be able to creep in. You will sell out for a few dollars. If somebody give you a few dollars, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. If you don't have a set of standards, morals, values, you can be found doing some things that you would have thought that you wouldn't have done for $1 or $2. And this is what he found himself doing, going against God, where you once stood on the word of God and said, like, I got to do what God is telling me to do. Now, in this instance, you plotted. When God specifically told you, these are my people, they are blessed people. But you went right behind God's back and you plotted with King Balak and led them into idolatry and immorality. Now, that was still ultimately the children of Israel. You know, they have to take accountability for their actions because they knew God and knew what God told them. And they had laws and different things. But at the same time, God dished out punishment to them because you deceived and you came like the serpent did in the book of Genesis with Adam and Eve. He still got punished. Yeah, Adam and Eve knew that they weren't supposed to eat from the tree, but you still came and you were being a deceiver, and the punishment is going to be handed down to you as well. And that's what happened to Balaam here. And his punishment was pretty much that he was ultimately killed by the Israelites. And this can be found in Numbers 31, verse 8. In conclusion, Balaam had some prophetic ability, but was ultimately a corrupt prophet who sought personal gain. Like I said, his power to bless and curse was only effective when aligned with God's will, proving that true spiritual authority belonged to God alone. So, moving right along, the ninth rebellious act of the Israelites. The Israelites committed fornication with Moabite women and worshiped Baal Peor. God's wrath resulted in a plague that killed 24,000 people before the Phinehas intervened. I do not know how to pronounce this. It's Phinehas. It's not Philistines, but I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it, you guys. Okay, so after Israel sinned by worshiping Baal Peor, God sent a plague. But when I'm going to just say Phinehas acted righteously, the plague was stopped and many were spared. So, it's pretty much, they were doing wrong and God sent his judgment. However, when they started doing right in the eyesight of God, God spared them and showed mercy. Through Moses was denied entry into the promised land due to his disobedience. God's merciful appointment of Joshua to lead Israel, ensuring they would still inherit the land. So this was another act of God showing mercy. He was taking Moses, and he was denied entry. That was his punishment and judgment for what he did. And now he's raising up Joshua to lead Israel, ensuring that they would still inherit the land. Despite their past failures, God gave Israel victory over the Canaanites, the Amorites, and King Og, allowing them to prepare for entering the promised land. In conclusion, even though the Israelites repeatedly sinned against him, God forgave, provided, and protected them through their journey. And today, we've sinned against God in so many different ways, turned our back on him, don't have a prayer life. We act like we do a favor to God when we go to church on Mother's Day and Resurrection Sunday and maybe Christmas, and that's it. We think we're doing God a favor. He still forgive us. He still provide for us. And he still dispatch his angels round about us of protection. His mercy and faithfulness ensured that Israel would still reach the promised land. And even today, if we turn from our sin, God, the promises that he's made to us, to our parents, to our grandparents, their prayers that went up, God is still keeping that covenant and still holding on to those prayers and blessing the next generations to come in our bloodline and in our family. God is sovereign, and God keeps his word. And if he give his word, or he hear the prayers, and he bottles up those prayers and he keeps those, and he still honors those things. And he did it for the children of Israel, and God is doing it for his people today. I know he's done it in my life. So his mercy and faithfulness ensured that Israel will reach the promised land, fulfilling his covenant with them. So although the generation of Israelites that he saved out of Egypt were pretty much killed off, died wandering around in the wilderness of just, regular causes and different things, just because they, it took them all that time. And I mean, just, they died by thousands, in the wilderness due to their disobedience. It was only a few from that generation that made it in. There was a few other things that I wanted to bring out, but I want to do it exactly how God gave it to me. So I didn't bring it out in this book. I'm going to bring it out a little later. And I just want to see if you guys got the information the same way that I did, and kind of ask the same questions once, I get to that point. So, I mean, the book of Numbers, I can't tell you how much this book applies to my life and my walk with God and just my everyday doing. It's like God is teaching me what not to do, because I find myself being the children of Israel. And this is pretty much like the blueprint of telling, like, the murmuring and complaining. Always be grateful. Be grateful for what God has already done. Stop asking for more and asking for this and asking for that and demanding and thinking that stuff is just supposed to be given to you and all of these different things. Be grateful and thankful for what you already have and what God has done. Don't waver. If God told you that he was going to do something, steadfast in your faith and believing in God. Don't waver in that. Show God that you believe it. If he did it for you before, he can do it again. It's like if you lost your house, like I did. In this case, God told me not to even fight. Go ahead and give it up. Because if I gave you that one, I can give you another. It took faith for me to not fight and let it go. But I'm sitting in the house that God promised me today. So I'm saying all of this to say, a lot of people, they go to the New Testament and said, Jesus did away with the Old Testament, and he did with a lot of different things. But don't sleep on the Old Testament. Don't. Because the Old Testament is laying the foundation, especially for a new Christian that's starting their walk with Christ. these books, you know, these first 5, 6, 7 books of the Bible is just laying the foundation of the different things of what you need to do, how you need to stay praying, how you need to be devout in having faith in God and believe in God and the things that you got on the floor before Him. Just all of those different things. I mean, I can't speak it enough. I kind of thought that these next couple of books, I'm like, oh my God, can we hurry up and get through them? But it's like they really have opened my eyes to a lot of different things. And I mean, I've truly enjoyed reading these books. And I hope that you've enjoyed these chapters, these books, just as much as me. I'm glad that you tuned in today. Look for me for next week, Friday, with the book of Deuteronomy. And thank you for joining me. See you next week.